Let's be honest, when you hear the word budget, what pops into your head? Probably restrictions, boring spreadsheets, maybe cutting back on things you enjoy. Well, today we're going to flip that whole idea around. Because a budget isn't a cage, it's actually a blueprint. It's the detailed plan that businesses, and yeah, even you and I, can use to build real, lasting success. So let's dive in.
Here's what we've got on tap. We'll start with the financial blueprint, just to make sure we've got the core ideas down. Then we'll get into all the different kinds of budgets out there, because there's a budget for pretty much every purpose. After that, we'll talk about what actually makes a budget work. And we'll wrap up by looking at some really cool modern ways to think about budgeting.
All right, let's get into our financial blueprint. Before we can build anything, we need to understand our tools and our materials. So let's define these core concepts.
So what is a budget really? At its heart, it's just a plan for the future. That's it. A plan written in the language of numbers. Money or units or hours. Think about it like a blueprint for a house. It shows you exactly what you're going to build and what it's going to cost, all before you even dig the foundation.
Now, a blueprint is totally useless if it just sits on a table collecting dust. And that's where budgetary control comes in. This is the system that brings the whole plan to life. It's the process of looking at what you plan to do versus what you actually did, figuring out the difference, and then, taking action. It's the construction crew making sure the building actually matches the blueprint.
Okay, this is a big one. People get these two mixed up all the time. A budget is not a forecast. A forecast is just a prediction. It's like the weather report saying it might rain tomorrow. A budget, on the other hand, is your plan. It's you deciding to pack an umbrella because your goal is to stay dry. A forecast is a guess. A budget is a target you're actively trying to hit.
And why do companies put in all this effort? Well, the payoff is huge. It's not just about pinching pennies. It forces everyone to plan ahead, it makes different departments actually talk to each other and coordinate, it communicates the company's goals to everyone, and it can be a huge motivator for teams. And of course, it's a fantastic way to evaluate performance.
So just like a builder has different blueprints for the plumbing, the electrical, and the structure, businesses have all kinds of different budgets for different jobs. Not all budgets are created equal, not by a long shot.
And this chart really lays it all out nicely. We can group budgets based on what they do, their function, like a sales budget or a production budget. We can also group them by scope, which gets us to the big picture master budget. And finally, we can look at them based on how flexible they are, which is super interesting.
Just about everything starts right here with the sales budget. You can think of it as the cornerstone of the whole building, or maybe the first domino in a long, long line. It's the company's best guess at what it's going to sell, and that one number sets off a huge chain reaction.
See, once you know what you expect to sell, that first domino knocks over the next one. The production budget. It answers a really simple question. How much stuff do we need to actually make to hit those sales targets?
And if you know what you need to produce, you can probably guess what's next, the purchases budget. What raw materials, what parts, what components do we need to buy to make all that stuff? See how it all connects? Each budget logically flows from the one before it.
Okay, now this one is absolutely vital, the cash budget. This tracks every single dollar coming in and every single dollar going out. It's what makes sure a company has enough actual cash to pay its bills and its people. A company can be profitable on paper and still go bankrupt if it runs out of cash. This budget is the lifeblood.
And finally, we get to the big kahuna, the master budget. This is where it all comes together. It pulls all those smaller, individual budgets, sales, production, cash, all of them, and rolls them up into one giant, comprehensive financial plan for the whole company.
But what happens when reality doesn't quite match the plan? I mean, it rarely does, right? Well, a fixed budget is static. It's set in stone for one level of activity. But a flexible budget, now that's dynamic. It's designed to change as your business activity changes, so you can make much better comparisons if your sales end up being, say, 20% higher or lower than you first thought.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the different types, but what's the secret sauce? What separates a budget that actually helps a company from one that just becomes a bureaucratic nightmare? Let's get into the keys to making it all work. Success is definitely not automatic. It really hinges on a few key things. You need to have crystal clear goals. You need to get the people who are actually doing the work involved in setting the budget. And maybe most important of all, you need total, unwavering support from the very top of the company. Without that, the whole thing is just a paper-pushing exercise.
So how do you manage a huge company-wide budget? Well, you don't.
You break it down. A budget center is just a manageable piece of the company, like the marketing department or one specific factory, that gets its very own budget to manage. This creates real ownership and accountability.
And to make sure everybody's playing by the same rules, you need an instruction booklet. That's basically what a budget manual is. It's the official rulebook that spells out exactly who's responsible for what the deadlines are, and what forms to use. It just keeps everything consistent.
Now this is a crucial idea, the key factor. Before you can even start budgeting, you have to figure out your biggest constraint. What's the one thing holding you back? For most companies, it's sales demand. They can only sell so much. For others, it might be a shortage of raw materials. Identifying this limiting factor is the true starting point for any realistic budget.
You know, the world of budgeting isn't stuck in the 1950s. Things are always evolving. So let's wrap things up by looking at a couple of modern approaches that really challenge the old way of doing things.
I love this comparison because it shows two completely different mindsets. The traditional way is incremental budgeting. You just take last year's budget and add or subtract a little bit. But zero-based budgeting, well, that's radical. You start from scratch, from zero every single year. Every manager has to justify every single penny, asking not, what should we change, but why do we even need this at all?
And here's another really powerful idea: performance budgeting. This whole method is about shifting the focus. Instead of just looking at the money being spent, you focus on the results being achieved. You directly link the money you're requesting to specific, measurable targets. The whole conversation changes from controlling inputs to achieving outcomes.
And that brings us to a final thought, something to chew on. These ideas are way bigger than just corporate finance. Think about that zero-based mindset for a second. What if you applied it to your own life, to your time, to your daily habits? Instead of just tweaking what you did last year, what would happen if you started from zero and had to truly justify everything you put on your calendar? It's a pretty powerful question, isn't it?